Welcome to Creative Nature Journaling with me, Bethany Milam. So today we're going to start off with what materials you need. So there's suggestions. You don't have to have everything on the list. What would be useful is if you could have a ruler, either some circular objects to draw around or a compass and a protractor. And some extra paper if you've got your own photographic references that you can search through that you might prefer using rather than mine, and then that is also great. I have given you a link for a template or several templates that you can use for your phenology wheels as well. So apart from that, your ordinary nature journal or sketchbook and some drawing materials. Okay, so with this week, we are going to be looking at phenology wheels. So we're going to first of all think, what is a phenology wheel? What do we want to record on one? Have a look at some examples, and then we're going to have a go at starting off or making some to use during the year. We're also going to make one that we can use as a review of the past year as well, because that's quite fun to do. So first of all then, what is phenology? It's a fancy word, sounds impressive, but basically, phenology is the study of the timing of reoccurring seasonal natural phenomena, especially in relation to climate and weather, and it can cover both plant and animal life events. So basically, pheno means to appear, and ology is the study of. So phenology is the study of first appearances. This can be things like when leaves or flowers first appear in spring, when plants produce fruit, when animals have young, or when migrating species arrive in a particular area. So you can cover lots of different things in your phenology wheel, depending on your own interests. And generally, it will have some kind of weather or climate aspect to it as well. It shows a progression of time. So a phenology wheel, then, what is a phenology wheel? Why are we using a wheel or a circle? Basically, a wheel is your visual representation of your observations over time being the key element here. So the wheel makes more sense when you're depicting a year or the cycles of the moon. So imagine that you've got a whole year on your page and you're going through, and years repeat and repeat and repeat. So it's a cycle basically. So you're going through winter, spring, summer, autumn. You can also use the wheel format for smaller time frames. So this is just 1 month. This is August. And in here you can use the cycle of the moon. So the different phases showing how it goes round, and again, cycles. It doesn't quite work if you are using calendar months. It would make a bit more sense if we were actually just following the moon. But never mind. Circles are fun to use. They look impressive. And it's a cool way of recording your data. So we can, even if it doesn't quite make sense for the shorter time periods to use a circle, we can still get away with it if you want to. So when you are recording your data, you want to first of all choose one area, one specific place to focus on. If you're moving around to different areas during the time period that you're recording your data, you might want to consider how you're going to show that in your journal. Because this is a way of showing time progressing. But if you then also include different places with this, it gets a bit confusing. So it's better if you can just focus on one area. So then let's move on to why make a phenology wheel. What are the benefits? Why are we doing this? So first of all, daily drawing and making observations from nature does keep you more connected to the natural world and to the seasons. So for me, I started off making these wheels so that I could put down a very small little observation of what I was seeing every single day. And it made me look at what was going on. It's made me think, oh, I can see how the seasons change and when things are beginning. And now that I have gone through and I have a couple of years in this book, I can compare from one year to the next year. So it gives you that connectedness to what's going on in your particular area. It's also a really fun way to pay attention to one place over time. It makes you focus on how nature changes with the passing of time. You can look for emerging patterns or changes over time, but also as like any journal entry, it's going to boost your memory and you can use it like a diary. And then there's some funny reasons as well. It sounds impressive. I've been working on my phenology wheel. And also circles do look really cool. Although you might find as you start going that these slices are actually quite difficult to draw inside of. So it does challenge you in different ways. So those are our reasons. If you are being even more scientific about our phenology wheel, then you can also use them to help you understand how plants and animals are responding to climate change. Phenological data can be useful in historical climatology. So it shows you how sort of events are affecting the plants and the animal life around you, and also shows you changes over longer periods of time, such as the growth year has lengthened on average a month over the past decade, according to a study by the Met Office. So these are long-term changes. So if you maybe say started making your phenology wheel in your teens, and then you're still making those phenology wheels into your older age, it would be really interesting to look back at all of those different wheels and see the changes that were happening over time. So there's a challenge. Lifelong, yeah. There we go. So let's have a little think about some of the barriers that might be a bit intimidating, might stop you from making these wheels. The first thing is getting started with it. It is a long project that you have to keep coming back to. And if you're one of these people that do have trouble with procrastination, you might be putting it off and putting it off. I'll do it next month. I'll start it next month. Oh, you've got to get started somewhere. Finding and setting aside time is always a thing. So if this is something that you're going to make a daily phenology wheel, you've got to put something on every single day. Do you have time to do that? How much time can you set aside to fill in this in? Perfectionism. If you if you are looking at some of the very, very good examples on the internet and thinking, oh, I want mine to be like that. It's got to be perfect. It's got to be all painterly and neat. Then it's going to cause you problems. Done is better than perfect. So maybe the first wheel you make, don't worry about making it look beautiful. Just get something down. Also, finding the data you want can be a problem. So you may struggle with finding the correct weather data. I'll give you some tips on places you can look for that. Overthinking it. There's so many things you can put in your wheel that you can spend more time thinking about it than actually doing it. Other problems, making it too small or too big for what you intend, and trying to do too much all at once. And I'm going to add one in here, burnout. If you make lots and lots of phenology wheels, it can get a bit overwhelming. So trying to do too much over time as well, just give yourself something manageable to do. So think about, to make it easier, what are your intentions with your phenology wheel? What is your goal? Have you got a specific focus that you can make things simpler by just having one element, one area that you want to look at? Make it a habit. So have a particular time that you're going to journal every day, or every week or every month, depending on when you're going to do your entries. Draw it in a book or even outside of a book. So have a loose bit of paper that you can transfer about, so that you'll have easy access to it for the duration that your wheel covers. So if you are, again, moving about, or you have lots of different books on the go, make sure that you've got it so that you're going to have it for the amount of time that you need it for. I've already said done is better than perfect. So don't aim too high. Start small and build up. Don't abandon it. If you miss a day, we've all done it. That's okay. Just start again the next day. Don't go, oh, I've missed a day. It's ruined. I can't do anymore. Even if it's a week you've missed, just start it up again. Make a table or use other formats. So think outside the wheel. If you are struggling with the circle, then maybe try using a concertina, a calendar, or a diary. You can also use stickers. You can use words, symbols. You don't have to create a masterpiece every day. So if you're struggling with painting or drawing, don't paint and draw in it. Use words, use symbols, and use other means of putting down the data that you want. Here's a good one. Don't compare your wheels to other ones you see online. So again, I've said that there are fantastic examples that have obviously taken lots of time to do, but you don't have to make it the same as those. You can have your own wheel that can be a bit messy. It can be unique to you. Don't aim to do too much. So if you keep your expectations low and then you end up doing more than you thought you would, it gives you a boost and you go, look at this I've done. So if you aim low, and then that is always good place to start off with. So getting started, the things that we need to think about: decide on a time frame, a location, and what data you will record. This is where you need to start off. So you can have a think now. If we're going to do a well, maybe 2 wheels in this session. So what kind of information would you like to record? What are you interested in? What location are you going to focus on? The best thing to do is, if you have a garden, focus on that. If you want to widen it out to your local area, then that's okay as well. If then we think about time frame, we're going to have a look at a couple of wheels with different time frames. You might have one that appeals to you more than others. Let's then think about choosing paper and media. If you know you want to use watercolor or wet media, then make sure that you're working on a paper that's going to cope with that, and learn from my mistakes, because I'll show you in a bit later what happens if you don't. Then think about, as I said, make sure that you're recording something you're interested in that is going to hold your attention for the amount of time that you're looking at it. Find consistent weather data that's local to you. So I'm going to show you a link in a slide later on. I have it on, that gives you weather data from amateur weather recording places that you'll probably be able to find something a little bit more local. If the only weather data you can get is from one of the let's say professional sites, then the chances are that it's going to be quite a way away from you, so the data may not be accurate to your location. So you've got decisions. Do you go for the amateur one, which may not be as precise? Or do you go for the professional one, which may be precise but not local? That's a dilemma. There's no right or wrong as to which you do. So again, it's worth looking into what weather data are you going to use, and just keep consistent to that as much as possible. Have a theme. So if you are struggling with the idea of putting absolutely everything in the wheel, give yourself a theme. Limit things down to, I'm going to look at leaves, I'm going to look at plants, I'm going to look at flowers, or I'm going to look at birds, or something else entirely. Focus on groups, species, one specimen, and then keep to that. If that feels like it's too restricted, you're on the other side of the spectrum of this, then you can think, okay, I'm going to look at overall changes. I'm going to look at general feelings of the season. The other thing you could do is make a calendar of firsts. So this, again, it goes back to the appearances of things. So when do you see the first flower opening? When do you see the first butterfly appearing? So you make basically a calendar of when you see the first of different phenomena appearing. Right. Now, the other thing is to use a format that appeals to you and suits the data that you want to capture. So we can have a look in a minute at different calendar formats. You could even use a diary as your journal instead, and you can explore all the same data that we're putting in the wheel, but in a different format, if that suits you better. There's no right or wrong, so it's something else to consider. If you get stuck about what to put in your journal, go back to the prompts that we always use, which are, what do you notice? What do you wonder? And what does it remind you of? So as well as thinking about the data, we can also think, how are we going to show that? So you could use symbols and icons. You can use color coding. You can use words, numbers, and pictures. So don't think that you have to do only pretty pictures. There can be words, there can be numbers. If you don't like the words, you could just use numbers and pictures. Take any combination that suits you. Then the other thing is, if you don't want to draw your own, then you can use a template. And there I have included, for those of you who have booked the live workshop, several templates that you can use. And they will be in a downloadable link shortly as well. Okay, so let's think about data. So there's a lot of talking before we get started, because there's lots to think about. So what data would you like to include? The first thing is make sure that there is a title and possibly a subtitle. So if your phenology wheel is covering a particular month, your title can be August, in this case 2023. If you've got a particular theme that you want to cover, that may be your subtitle. You can then make sure that you've got the date, day, month, year, season, or whatever, again, your time period you're covering is, make sure that you've got that. So in my first ring around my B here, I have a letter for the day. So this is, we're starting on a Tuesday, and I've got the number. So 1, 2, 3, all the way around to 31. And then a letter for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, etc. So I've got my month as my and the year. I've got each of the days in the wheel. So that gives me a nice precise time period in here. Okay, now these are optional things to include. You might want to look at moon phases, sun and moon rise and set times, day length. Again, in this particular wheel, I have the moon phase, and I've done this by drawing it in little circles, little symbols of the way. So we've got, actually, this was a fun month because we have 2 full moons. Blue moon. So we have the full moons, we've got waning, and then where's halfway? There's a third quarter, new moon, and then first quarter. So again, I in this particular one have chosen to draw that, and we'll be going through all of the ones here in a moment. I should have marked the pages, never mind. In other places, I have, again, just done the symbol. I haven't done all the symbols, but I've chosen to do, and you'll see this is in a table format instead. Just the symbol, and let's go for up to date. There we are now. So in here, again, I've just got symbol for the first quarter, the full moon, the last quarter, and the new moon. But then in here, I've also been writing the sunrise, sunset, moonrise, moonset times as well. So you're thinking, oh no, that's too much. You don't have to do it all. So I've put sunset time in this box. I've put moonrise time in that set box. I haven't done it sort of all of them because that was getting a bit too much. So I've just sort of cycled around these and put them sort of so that I've got some indication throughout each of those weeks in the month. Okay. So again, choose how much data you want. Don't try and do everything. Okay, other things. So astronomical events. meteor showers, eclipses, anything interesting going on in the sky. You can also put in holidays of different sorts and yearly events. So on some of these, I've put in sort of fun national days like National Cheetah Day or something like that. Other places sort of putting in Christmas. Other people will be putting in things like solstices, equinoxes. I've put some of those into some of the wheels. Basically anything that you think you want to include, anything that has importance to you, put it in. So weather, temperature, highs and lows, wind speed, that should have a deal on it, gusts, direction, humidity, dew point, the amount of rain or snow you're getting, all of that kind of information. You can think about how you may want to include any of those. So again, in this particular wheel, I have the temperature highs and lows of each day. So I've put the number, but I've also color coded each of those. You can also put in things like the UV index, pollen count, air pollution, weather warnings, and storms. That's a fun one. So if you have named storms like we have in the UK, you could put in the names of the storms that are coming across. You can put in here we go. What I tend to do is I have these little yellow or orange, hopefully not red, triangles for weather warnings. So this is a flood warning, a rain warning, a wind warning, and a rain warning again. Over in November there. So have a little think of this, and again, going back to our present month, got snow and ice warnings all over the place along here. And again, I color code. So if it's a yellow warning, it goes in yellow. If it's a amber warning, it goes in orange. So you can have a think about whether you want to include elements like that. You can also include extreme weather events. So if you are if you do happen to have something like a tornado warning, and there is one somewhere. Where is it gone? There we go. I think it was on here, or was this just storms? So if you did have, oh, there we go. I put it up there. A tornado warning. The Toro website will give you information about those. And again, you can color code whether it's yellow, orange, red. Hopefully not red. So any extreme weather events you can also put in. Something else to think about, and especially at the moment, which is a bit concerning, is also put in fire and fire recovery information. So like we have storm warnings, you can also get fire warnings, flood warnings, all of those can go in. Things also like if you do happen to live by the water, you might be recording tides, high tide, low tide, flooding information, water levels, even water pollution, if you happen to be able to collect that kind of data. And then there's other observations. So observations of animals, birds, and insects that you're seeing. Again, thinking about when you first see insects or birds appearing. So thinking about migrations, thinking about hibernation and emergence. Also the life cycles of animals, insects, reptiles, amphibians, birds, all of those. So you can think about different behaviors, nesting, breeding, when they have young, how those young grow. over time. Again, it's going to depend on what you're seeing in your area, what you're interested in. So other observations of plants, leaves, crops, trees, flowers, the date of the stages of plant growth. So first flowering dates, maybe the success of different plants and crops, the height of plants over time. You could also think about disease measurement, plants or animals. You can also include things like thoughts and questions that you have each day. You can make it even more personal. So you could make a section for putting in feelings. So use it a bit like a mood tracker. And look at relationships between different sort of different observations. So it could be that you're looking at the relationships of different weather, maybe temperature, connected to when you're seeing butterflies. So in this month, this is October 2023, I have recorded when I'm seeing butterflies by basically putting a little symbol of a butterfly and it's flying around, and then I see butterflies continuing through the page along here, and then I see no butterflies for a few days. And then I look at the temperature, I notice how cold it's got. And then I see butterflies again. And then I see no more butterflies after here, which was 23rd. And again, I can look at that. I can look at the weather, the temperature, and see a connection there. So look at relationships between your observations as well. Okay, so if you are wanting to include pictures, you could also think about putting in observational drawings or paintings of different things. Now, in this wheel and in the August one that I showed, I've been putting in skyscapes. So little pictures, paintings, drawings of the sky every day. There's a lot of clouds there. Clouds are fun. There's a lot of rain on this one. So not so fun. Can be fun to draw. So you could probably think about adding a skyscape. You could also think about drawing a phenomena over time in a sort of almost like a time-lapse sequence. So it could be that you're looking at a flower and you're looking at it coming up and budding, and then it's flowering, and then it goes over in its gradual stage as it decomposes. That could be quite a fun sort of little sequence to follow. You could also look at new leaves budding and growing, a plant sort of growing from a seed, so fruit and veg growing. I did have the idea of drawing a cucumber plant flowering to harvest and sort of following that through. I haven't done it yet, but it was an idea I had. A flower opening, going to seed. You could also think about if you've got a bird box or bird camera, or you look at one that's local to you online, you could also go for following birds from nesting to egg to fledge. And you could look at frog spawn if you've got a pond, tadpoles to frogs, and following a caterpillar to butterfly. You could look at a plant and a flower sort of opening up, blooming, producing seeds. Lots of different species. So things like you could look at leaves every day. So have a different leaf every day that you're going to draw. You could focus on one tree or one branch or one leaf and watch it change color in the autumn. So there's lots of ideas. There's lots of things that you could do. But again, you've got to find something that appeals to you, that's going to hold your interest for that amount of time and that you have access to. That's the other thing. Also landscapes are quite a good one. So if you don't want to just concentrate on the sky, you want to have a bit of land in there as well. Maybe your view out the window could be a good subject. And you follow that through the different seasons. Color swatches can also be used. So if you don't want to actually draw something, you just want to get some color on, think about the colors that you're seeing in the world around you and do little swatches of those that illustrate the changing seasons. You can add any sort of illustrations, cartoons, or new discoveries that you're making as well. And because a circle doesn't fit very well into a rectangle sketchbook, there's all this space around the outside that you can see I have used to put in words and pictures of what I have been seeing throughout the month as well. So I put in extra observations, things that I want to highlight or want a bit of extra space to add in. And I can write about it, I can ask questions, I can do my I notice, I wonder, it reminds me of. You can also include bits of creative writing or poetry. So I've had a little go at putting a little poem over in the corner. So you can add things like that. You can also play around with putting in things that you're learning at the time. So if you're learning a foreign language, you could have a different word every day. Or anything else that you, again, want to use to make your wheel your own. So let's have a look closer at some examples. So on the side of the screen here, I have pulled a few examples that I have found, and the link will take you to the maker of each of those wheels. So this one is a wheel showing you the whole year. It's basically looking at the seasons, and they're focusing on an oak tree. So we're seeing winter with the bare branches and little buds sort of appearing there. We've got spring where the leaves start to grow and we're producing flowers. We've got summer where the little acorns are starting to appear as tiny little green blobs. And then we've got proper acorns, and then we've got leaves turning into those autumn colors. So again, we're seeing the life cycle of this particular oak tree throughout the seasons. Okay, so now on this one, this is a bit a bit more number based. So in here we are seeing first of all, let's start at right in the middle. And I've done a close-up so you could see it a little bit easier, hopefully. We've got the day, so 1 2 3 going round. Looking at the next ring, we've got a picture of the weather. So there's a sun or there's clouds in each of those segments. The next one, I think, is referring to how much it rained. So there is a little water table and some numbers on there. Then we go for the temperature. So they've got a high temperature and a low temperature for each of day. The pinky red ring then is showing you, I think, the sunrise and sunset times. And they have got a little label to say when daylight saving time ends, which you can see the numbers change by an hour. And then the grey ring, we've got symbols of the moon phase. And then the interesting blue splodges seem to be a depiction of the tide. So they've got a mark of when the king tides are. So high tide and low tide each day. So it's quite a bit involved, but it is very well presented, and makes looking at the information quite easy. So it's possible that you could take elements of this, if you're wanting to get those kind of details put in. But again, it doesn't have to be perfect. This is an extremely neat one. So your wheel might look a little bit more hand drawn, shall we say? And this one I really like. It's got a lot of information on it. It may not look as pretty, but it does the job really, really well. So we've got, let's break this down again. What have we got? We've got the date and the year in the middle. Then we've got these colours, and these colours relate to the temperature. There's no numbers here, but we have a colour representation of how cold or how warm it was each day. Above that, we've got the humidity, where they have used numbers. And then above that, this is what I like. They've got the wind. So depending on how windy it is how many different little arrows are on this line. So you can see, to start off with, they've got 1 arrow, and then the next day has got 3 arrows, so it's more windy. If you look on the other side, if we get to 31, there's 4 arrows. It's extremely windy. So that I quite like that. I might steal that idea at some point. That's a good thing. You can always go, oh, I like that idea, and use these different ways of using symbols. All right, so above the wind, then we've got the moon phases, and they have drawn every single one of them. Above that, we have times, and I am going to say that that is the sunrise, possibly. No, I'm not sure that all of them are. It could be sunrise and sunset. And then we've got the date above that. And then we have a picture that depicts the weather. I really like the first one, where you've got the sun and you've got clouds in the middle of the sun. I thought that was quite a fun way of doing it. We've also, I think actually the little numbers at the top possibly could be sunrise times, actually. And they haven't quite written down what each of these numbers mean. So there's a bit of guesswork here for us. Anyway, we have got a key for the temperatures. We've got also lots of different pictures for things going on in the night sky around. So they're making little pictures of the lunar eclipse, Saturn and Jupiter. We've got a comet, and they've also making notes of how many times they have seen things like the moon rise, the sunset, as well. And so that brings me down to my words. So I'm going to go through my book as well, but these are 2 formats. So I've got my wheel format, the one that I've been showing you here. For August, I've got one for September, which we'll have another look at as well. So I'm just going to hopefully take that side view off. There we go. You can see it a little bit bigger. So I've already shown you this one. We go over to, where's September gone? So this was the first phenology wheel in this book, and you can see I've gone all out with it. And then I decided in September I was going to do something a bit different, try something else out. So I've gone here for a calendar format instead. So at the top, I have the day. So I've got Friday and I've got number. I've got the moon, and I have gone through and put the drawing of the moon for every day. That was a bit tedious. So then have a section for where I'm putting in the weather. So high temperature and low temperature for the day, the humidity. I put in the wind direction. I put in a little symbol showing the weather, so clouds and suns appear a lot. I've also put in a space for notes. So I've put cloudy with a few sunny spells. And then underneath, I've got a space for a daily observation. So I've challenged myself this September to do a drawing or a painting every single day, which is good. It's fun to do that, but you've got to make sure that you've got enough time to do it. So you may not be able to do something like this every single day of a year. And well, you can challenge yourself if you want to try it. Go ahead. So I've got my a butterfly, really close up view of a butterfly. Next day I've just got some, so the top of my cherry tree, there's some little leaves showing different colors. This day I saw a heron flying across the sunset. And so it just goes on with a little view each day. And you see some days I obviously had more time than others. So I've got something on every page, even if it's a tiny butterfly on a sky. Then again, think about this kind of data. What is useful? What do you want to record? Do you want to have just a random selection of things that you saw? Or do you want to have a theme that you're going to go for? And how much of this weather data do you want? So you'll see that as I go through, I stop recording humidity. I stop recording wind direction because it all gets a bit too much. So to start off with, I was trying to do, as I've said, don't do a little bit too much. The other thing that I did, which I found very useful, is I've made a color code for temperature and a color code for wind. Sorry, that's ran the wrong way, but never mind. So here, basically, I've gone, okay, 11 to 15 degrees centigrade is going to be green. 16 to 20 is yellow. 21 to 25 is orange. And I've made that consistent throughout. So just in case I didn't have the same media every time, I've made sure that I've got those colors in pencil. I've got them in these brush pens, and I've got that in felt tip as well. So I can make sure that I can color code in whatever media, but always making it consistent. So wind is round this way. So we have the wind data, again, going from green all the way up to pink, depending on how windy it is. So as you look through, you'll see that where I've got my temperatures, it's always color coded. So you can at a quick glance see how hot or cold it was. Okay, so again, October, I went back to the circle format, and here I experimented with putting in little triangles and arrows for the wind direction. And probably you'll see it looked very messy. I wasn't particularly happy with that. But that's okay. You've got to try these things out sometimes. What I did like was the way I was recording the butterflies. And again, I've put in lots of different observations around the outside as well. I've kept to a sort of verbal daily observation. and just use this section for doing a picture of the sky. Right. Let's go to November. November and December. I've gone for smaller wheels and put them on the same day. Sorry, on the same page even. Same day, that doesn't make sense. Okay. So here I'm still recording humidity here, but I've got high temperature, low temperature. I've added rain, how much rain we're getting. And I've got lost to the wind direction, and I'm just putting how windy it was. So again, it's if you decide on what you want to record at the beginning, it's okay to change your mind if there's something you decide actually it's not useful. But it's good to have a little bit more of a think before you start. Okay, then we get to 2024. And I start off January. I've gone for a table format rather than a wheel. I was getting a little bit tired of the wheel format. I thought, well, what other way could I present this data that's going to look all right? But it's going to give me more space for drawing around it as well. So this is my January page, and here I've got, again, high temperature, low temperature. I've got rain. I put snowing. And I've ended up writing in when it was icy or frosty into those boxes as well, because there wasn't that much snow really. I've put humidity, I've put wind highs and lows, and then I've put a little notes along the side of general weather observations and weather warnings, and the named storms. And it was a very stormy January. So this is me being blown almost over by the wind. So you can put funny little cartoons as well into that. Okay, so February is a bit pretty. I think I made it extra pretty because it rained a lot. So again, this is a table format, and I actually made this on the computer and printed it out. Okay, this is where I say, look at my mistake. So I've gone in and I've put in the temperature colors, and I started off using a brush pen, watered it down, and went, oh no, it seeped around to the other side. So where I've written some information here, it's got a little bit blurred, but never mind. Learn and move on. So make sure that when you're doing something like this, you're thinking about what media is going to work on what paper. So if you're using printed template paper, sort of just ordinary printer paper, don't put wet media on it. It doesn't work very well. Okay, so learn from February. And we go on to March. And March, I've got an awful lot of insects. Just turned out that way. I've seen a lot of them. And you can see here, I've learnt, and I've gone full coloured pencil instead. So again, lots of rain. I've put in the wind, I've put in high, low temperature, and I've got my space for writing what the weather was doing and any other observations. I've put in little butterfly symbols when I was seeing butterflies. And again, I've got all my other observations around the page. April, I went back to using the wheel. So I've made it a little bit prettier. And I've turned it into a flower. Because why not? There was lots of flowers. So then we have a outer section where I've put in things like sunrise, sunset, and the moon phase I've also ended up putting in the weather warnings in this outer section as well. In this section, I've put in just a basic description of the weather. I've got my temperature high, temperature low, wind high, wind low, and rain. So this is what I was recording, and I started off up here with putting in a couple of daily observations when I was noting different things, and then it kind of petered out and it all became a big jumble of pictures. I always go back to the pictures. So this was quite fun. This was the total eclipse in the USA. I was watching it online, but I thought, well, let's add that into here as well. Why not? It's happening. It's not technically happening where I am, but I've put it in a little enclosed section. Right. May. May, again, I've kept to the same format. And you can see I'm recording the same day. I've got rain, wind, temperature, weather. Rather than using words, I've just put that in as a symbol now. So I've drawn a little suns, clouds, rain clouds, etc. Going around. And I've gone back to having my daily observations, because personally I found that having this where I've got a little box, an empty little box waiting for me to fill in, it makes me want to go look outside and find something interesting that I can write in that box. So it's a motivation thing for getting outside for me. So I've gone back to putting in my little daily observations of nature all around that outside area again. So you can see again, I'm using the rest of it to put in observations, but for this month as well, I've made a list of what is currently flowering in the garden on the 1st of May, and then what's in flower between the 1st and the 30th of May. So anything that wasn't in flower, what has come into flower since. And anything that was still in flower on the 31st, I have marked with a line across the little bullet point. So I'm keeping track of the flowering and the length of flowering of the different plants in my garden. So that is, again, it's phenological, it's oh dear, I can't speak anymore. Too much talk. It's data that I could have in a wheel, but I put it on the outside of the wheel instead. Right. So again, you'll see June, July, very similar formats. I've made them a bit bigger so that I can have more space for putting in some of those observations. It's all the same color coding and symbols being used. Sorry, I'm just gonna have to get rid of something on my screen that's popped up. Okay, same for August here. I've started to put in a few pictures as well. And then the autumn of 2024, I gave up on the wheels for September and October and just made a general observations page instead. So don't feel that you've got to keep going all the time. If you get busy and it's just too much to do, then think of quicker ways of putting in your information. So I started again in November, and I hope you're not scared of spiders. There's my giant spider in the middle of that wheel. And again, I'm recording my weather data and I'm making my daily observations. You'll remember this, Margie. No sun, grey skies for 13 days. Oh, yeah, let's not have that again. But again, it happened. It goes in the journal and I can go, oh, that. And can you see what I've done here? The first day that the sun came out, I put a little sunshine, or quite a big sunshine, over my observation day. And I thought, first sight of blue sky and sun. There we go. It was a happy day when the sun came back. Right. That brings me to December 24. And again, I've got a slightly messier hand-drawn wheel in there. But again, same kind of observation and weather data being put in, which brings me all the way up to this January. And you can see how far we've got. So I've put in my daily observation for today. I've got the full moon, which I actually have not managed to spot because it's a bit cloudy out there. But I haven't actually put in the weather data yet for that one. So that is still to do. So let's, now that you've you've seen lots of different formats and sort of ways of putting in different types of data, maybe I've given you, hopefully it's given you some ideas of what you may want to do and may want to capture into your wheel. And we're going to have a look at how you might do a seasonal or a 12-month phenology wheel. So I have given you some templates that you can use. So if you want to just do the 4 seasons, you can use this kind of format where you're using a wheel and you're dividing it into quarters. So you have summer, autumn, spring, winter, whichever one you want to start with at the top. So make sure you get them in the right order, otherwise it won't make sense. But you can start with whichever season in your top corner if you want. And then I've also given you this one. So this is giving you 12 sections for each month. And I've got spring up here, summer, autumn, and winter. And if you notice, spring has got kind of a flower, summer's got a leaf, autumn's got a sort of maple leaf design, winter's got a holly leaf. So just, again, makes it a bit pretty. So have a think about that. And also I've just got the quarters in here, so if you wanted to cut it out and you don't want the little words here, you can write them yourself into the middle section. Okay, so on the screen then, have a little think first of all about what data you want to record. Do you want to put in any weather data? Do you want to draw or do you want to write? Think about if you're going to put this into your sketchbook, add in a title and a subtitle. So that can be it can be sort of your year. In this case, I've put months there, but it should be year. And the place that it's about. And then what I'm going to do is show you very quickly how, if you want to draw your own, you can have a go at doing that as well. So let's use this bit of paper. So if you do want to use something to draw around, it's okay if you want to use a cup or, in this case, a saucer to draw your circle. If you have a protractor or a compass, then again, that also gives you some different ways of drawing. So if you're going to, first of all, what I would do is, if I'm doing this properly, I would find the middle of the page and mark that. and do it this way as well. I'm not going to worry too much about that way for this example, but I would also find the middle. That's ways. And then what I would do is just get that to how big I want my circle to be on the page and draw my circle. And then you say you wanted to have some different rings to put in. You can add as many as you want. And then to do the sections, there is a fun way where you don't have to do measuring with a protractor. It works if you want 32 sections. It doesn't work so much if you want different numbers of sections. So I'm going to show you this way instead, where I'm going to put the protractor on my middle, and then where I've got 0, I'm going to do a mark and a mark on 180. And this is a little bit of maths. So if we want 12 sections, so a section for each month, then we want to go for 30 degrees. So if we go around and mark 30, 60, 90, 20. Oops, I've also got a spinny one, so I can actually turn it around. So this is actually, if I'm doing smaller numbers, it gets a bit complicated. So say I am drawing 31 sections. I need 11.61 or as close to that as it's possible to get. So actually that makes this spinning protractor very useful, because I can mark that a little bit more precisely and then carry on around my circle. The other thing I can do with this one is, if I want a small circle in the middle, it's got a little hole that I can draw. Clever, isn't it? So if you are using a saucer to put in another circle, it can be difficult to line it up. You can get all sorts of weird things happening. So what I would do is measure across the space from your middle outwards. Make sure you've got, let's say, we'll do should measure the saucer first, but let's do 80 this side and 80 the other side. And then you line up the sides of your saucer and you do little marks this way and this way as well. You can get that lined up. So if I actually measured the saucer, it's easier to do this way around. And then, okay, it's 150. Divide that in half. Draw a mark that is the half of the saucer one way, half the saucer the other way, half of the saucer down below, half of the saucer above, and then line up your saucer on those marks. You will get it in the center. And that is useful, especially if you want to do a really big wheel. So you get a nice big dinner plate, and you can get a circle that's much bigger than you can get with a protractor. So there's lots of methods. And then basically what you want to do from there is to draw from the middle to each of your sections coming out. So you slice up your wheel like you're slicing a pizza and go around like that. My advice is to draw it in pencil first and then go over in pen. In that case, if you make any mistakes, you have the option of rubbing out. Okay. Does that make sense? So I've given you the maths on the screen if you want to go for drawing one yourself and coming up with any of those different sections. You can just use a template and stick that in. You can also use it to trace from if you prefer. And you can add more or less sections by adding more circles onto that wheel if you prefer to. So what we need to do then is to fill in the sections for each month. So on this one, what I'm going to suggest is that you make, if you've never made one before, make one for your year review, possibly. So you can also make one for the coming year that you're going to fill in as you go along. But just so we've got something, so let's say we're going to do 2024. And then this is going to be observations in Basingstoke. So you've got title, subtitle, and then we can go in and have a look at what's going on in here. So we've got spring. We wanted to put some fancy lettering in here. You could do. You can also just, I always think, which way round am I going to write? Do I turn it around and write it this way so it's upside down? Or should I keep it this way and write it that way? I change my mind every wheel. Some way times halfway through the wheel as well, and that's confusing. So have a think about that. It always causes me problems because I can never decide. And then where should we write the actual months? What do we want to do here? So so how was I dividing it up as well? I've forgotten. So we might also, you can see here, I've put on the screen some observations from last December. So here I've picked out 3 observations. It could be just one that you want to put in the box, but I've gone for a insect observation, a bird observation, and a plant observation. And I've chosen either the most interesting observation of that month, or the something that was sort of very prominent that month. So have a think about what kind of observations you may want to put in. So as well. So we're gonna go, let's put some see if I can fit them in around here. Might be a bit tight. I'm gonna shorten these steps. I made it too many. I think I might have made a mistake here. Oh, I've missed out October. I was looking at that going, what have I done? It's getting late, isn't it? Never mind. This is why you should use pencil first. Now it's all messy. Oh, well, never mind.
Did you make that template yourself?
I did, yes.
Did you have templates to do it with?
No, this is hand drawn.
Okay.
And then a bit of Photoshop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tidy it up.
It's lovely. I like it.
Thank you. I just need to work out how the months and not forget November or October. There we go. Never mind. We're there now. So as I was saying, think about looking back through your observations, think about what you saw at different months. If you use anything like iNaturalist, where you put your photographs, then you can look back through that, and it's quite useful because you have the dates and the places recorded as well. So it makes it a little bit easier to find something interesting from each month, because sometimes if we're thinking back, by the way, what did I see in January? I'm not sure. So have a little think through what you might want to record. So what I have is this lovely J. So the other thing is, how are you going to fit your recordings, your drawings or data into the little segments? It can be quite difficult to fit something on. So is it okay if it goes over the edge? Does that mean that you're going to stop drawing if it goes over the edge, or you're going to continue it into the next section? There's lots of decisions that you may want to think about. Again, if you draw it in pencil first, you start drawing a little shape and it's like, actually, I don't like that, or it's in the wrong place. I want to move it a little bit. You've got the ability to rub out any lines that you don't actually want to keep and move things around. So if you're not sure how it's going to all fit together, go for pencil, and then you can go, actually, I want that to be a bit higher. So I'm just going to move my J up a little bit. I might then decide I'm not going to include the whole of this leaf with the little mine going on in here. I'll just have a little section, and then have that squiggly leaf mine. And this is something that I had ID'd on iNaturalist. And I've forgotten what it is already. There's a tiny little moth. So I can go back to my observation, and I can put in the species as well. I can write that into the box, and then let's put in this lovely winter jasmine. And again, I can have it going off the edge. I'm not too worried about that, and it can go behind my J. So I'm thinking about my composition. How am I using the box to fit in my observations there? Again, if that's a bit much, you might want to just keep it to one observation. On the other hand, you might want to do lots of teeny weeny drawings in there. You could put some color swatches of things that you saw rather than actually drawing them. So there's lots of options of what you may want to do. And this is where you can make it nice and personal to you and what you have been seeing in your area in the last year. So you can see I can go over that in pen and put in the lines where I want them to be. And then I'd rub out the pencil and I'd put color. And again, you can go through each little segment and put in your main observations for that month. So for example, for June, I might then these are two things that I've picked out. I have a hairy shield bug, which is lovely purple color, and I've got a fledgling blue tit calling to be fed. So those are both photographs from my garden. And so those are the things that I might include for June. And yeah, if you want to do an example using my photos, that's absolutely fine. And if you are watching the recording, you can pause on any of these to draw them a little bit longer. But it has more meaning if you look at your own observations. If you keep an album of photos. So here's April. I've actually got 3 insects. No birds. Oh no. There were birds that I could have chosen, but I was struggling to choose between these 3. So we've got a Darwin wasp, we've got the tawny minor bee, and there's a bee fly as well, and then loads of bluebells about. So some months you might have a lot more observations that you want to put in than others. Are you strict with yourself and say, right, I'm going to make sure that I keep with just 3 observations, or do you start including more? That's always the issue, isn't it? Okay. March. This is my observation. So I've chosen a peacock butterfly. I've got lesser celandine, and I found this raspberry plant growing in the middle of nowhere. I was like, how has that where has it come from? What's going on? So that was my little little mystery. And there we've got February, crocuses, and a long-tailed tit. Not my photograph was a long-tailed tit. I had to find a better one. They're not easy birds to photograph. They're lovely, but they're very fast. And then January, I had this greater spotted woodpecker sitting on top of a very tall tree, sort of near to my garden, and calling continually for, I don't know, it's probably there about an hour, calling. What is it doing? Anyway, I also found a about 20 or 30 hibernating ladybirds at the base of a tree, which was quite fun to discover. And then I've also got some snowdrops in there. So this just gives you some ideas of things that you might want to include. And so again, what I would do is I'd draw those first of all in pencil, think about the composition, where am I going to place different elements, how maybe the most important element I make a bit bigger, or things that I want more detail in, make a bit bigger, and then make other things smaller. So that's how I would go about, again, filling in the year in review. Actually, I might write along here. Yeah, and review. And you could, again, in your journal, explain that you're choosing your most interesting observations, or whatever it is that you have chosen, what your criteria is. One thing I was also thinking about that I could do for this is to put in the average temperature for either each month or each season. Again, that would be a little bit of working out to actually calculate that. But again, if you wanted to include extra weather data, or that it rained a lot in the spring, for example, that you could put that kind of information in, as well as drawing your pictures. So moving very quickly on to the next kind of wheel, which is making a wheel for 1 month. So again, I have given you a template that you can use, and this one on the screen you can see there is a link to it as well. So this is a 32 segment template. If you wanted to make one for January and you want to sort of try and remember the last 13 days, and or even just start one from today, and maybe draw a picture in the the missing segment, then have a go at doing that. So again, this is a template that I'm going to make available shortly. So if you prefer to have a look at my flower design template, then this is also a possibility that you can use. And again, you've got a segment here where you can write in what data you're going to put in each of these rings. So the way I do it is that I would have the day in this first section, rain, wind, highs and lows, temperature, highs and lows, or maybe just wind in one segment, then temperature, highs and lows. And then I could have a segment for drawing in a weather symbol, or writing what the general weather that day was. One for the moon phases or the sunrise times. And then at the large segment, you could either draw or paint in, or you can write sort of an observation down. Again, there's no right or wrong way to use it. It's entirely up to you how you want to go about doing that. So first thing is, decide what data you want to record on that 1 month wheel. So remember, if you're doing a 1 month, you've got to write something down for every day of that month. So it's quite a sort of, it doesn't have to be a lot. You can literally do this in less than 5 minutes each day. So you maybe 3 minutes a day is all you need. If you're going to paint or draw something every day, you're going to need a bit longer. So decide what data you want to record. How long do you want to spend on it? Put in your title and your subtitle. Print your template, and you can stick that in, or you can trace it, or you can draw your own wheel. You can even use a calendar or a table format if you prefer. And then again, start with pencil and then go for pen, just in case. And you can fill in your segments. And this is the link I was going to show you of past weather data that you can get. So this is the Met Office Weather Watchers site. And it will take you to a map where you can zoom in to your local area and find a either an amateur weather recording station or a official one, and then it will give you past data for all sorts of information, temperature, rain, sometimes wind. They do vary a bit on what they record depending on which station you're looking at, so it's worth looking around to see whether they've got the data that you want. But then you can find one that's close to you and you can look back and find the weather data that you want to record. So it's quite useful for that. So I'll again make sure that you've got that link as well below. All right, now just the maths again in case anyone is drawing their own wheel. So if rather than January, you want to look ahead and start drawing one for February, then you've got a 29 there, but you've also got a 30. So if you want a section where you're like in here, you're going to write what the data is that you're collecting, make sure you always give yourself an extra section. So if there's 31 days in your month, you might want to go for 32. If there's 29 days in your month, you might want to go for 30. So just if you want that extra section, make sure that you do include it when you're starting out. Okay, and the last thing is I've given you a page of links where you can find some more information that you might find useful to you. So again, there's the weather data one at the top. There's also some more weather station sites that you can look at. So I use this one at the top, but you might find that you prefer any of the other ones included on here. You can look for timeanddate.com, gives you brilliant information about what's going on in the night sky, sunrise times, and all of that information. And if you put in your location, you can make sure that it's nicely calculated to exactly where you are. So that is very useful. And again, a little bit more information on phenology wheels by other people as well. So I hope that you enjoyed the session. It was a lot of talking on my half, explaining what a phenology wheel is and how to go about using them yourself. It is something that you do over time. It's not a one session project. So hopefully it's given you a starting point that you can think about how you want to use your wheel and create something yourself using your own data. So whether that is to create a wheel for the coming month or the present month, or whether you want to do a little bit more on a wheel, sort of a year in review. So we're looking back at the past year and going through your observations and what you've seen in that past year. Or even if you want to go for just looking at the seasons to start off with. So this again, it could be a review of the last year, or you can start it now and use it for the coming year. So again, you can just split it into spring, summer, autumn, winter. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed it, and I will stop the recording now and see how you've got on, and if you have any thoughts. Okay, so just a few little finishing thoughts for you. So things that have come up is don't bite off more than you can chew. This is a long project. If it's too much, you know you're not going to do something every single day, then don't go for that. Go for something a little bit more manageable. So you might want to make an entry every week. You might want to make an entry every month. You might want to make an entry every season. Whatever is going to suit you and your schedule, that's absolutely fine. If you want to just stick to writing rather than drawing, absolutely fine to do that as well. If you want to draw rather than write, that's also absolutely fine. So don't feel that there is a right or wrong way of doing this. It's entirely up to you. And as you can see on some of these wheels, there are days where I have written hardly anything. There are days when I've written a lot. That is natural. That's normal. That's what will happen. So you probably won't have something to write in every day. I mean, this day I've just written grey, dark, dreary. That's literally all I could think to write. There are days where I've missed out and I've sort of gone back and kind of remembered or guessed what I was seeing. Again, that's fine. If you want to just leave it blank, that's fine as well. You don't need to worry about making it pretty and perfect and all of that. So when I started this off, when I got to the second month of doing it, September, I decided on this sort of format. This was almost too much for me. This is where my point of, oh, I might give up sort of came to. And I didn't. I pushed through and I went back to using the wheel format and enjoyed it again. So then when I get to the next August, and like, oh, I've done a year of these wheels now, or tables or in some format. Then I go, okay, I'm going to stop now. I've done a year. That's enough. And the autumn, I sort of go, oh, let's just do a page of general observations and we'll date things as they go along if it's relevant. But I was giving up on the daily observations. And then I missed it too much. I actually really missed doing the wheels. So I started up again. So it is a little bit like a habit, a mindfulness thing to sort of just spend maybe just a couple of minutes observing something outside and writing what you saw. So it is something, maybe persevere with it. There are times when you want to give up or you don't have anything to put in, but that's okay, that's normal. So there's no problem with having blank spaces or sort of things done after the day. So you might not have time to write something in that day, but you might take a photograph and then you can use that photograph to write as a sort of memory jog, or you can just stick in the photograph. That's fine as well. So don't worry about that. The other thing that came up is with the where I put in seasons on the months. If you disagree with how I've arranged it, then you can also offset your seasons. So you could switch them around. So get rid of the line through the middle and then put in your own lines of where you think your winter, spring, summer, autumn begin and end in relation to the months. So that's also absolutely fine to do as well. Okay, so hopefully you have found that really interesting and you are feeling more confident about creating and making your own phonology wheels for the year to come or for this year in review. I hope you enjoyed it and see you next time. Bye-bye.